The metronome on Dr. Thorne's desk did not tick. It whispered. Slicing, slicing, slicing. It was a sleek, digital thing, a black monolith sitting on a desk of polished mahogany that smelled of lemon oil and old money. I focused on the rhythm, just as he had instructed, trying to separate the shadow from the memory. That was the terminology he used. He didn't speak of curing the trauma of the break-in or the months of paranoia that followed. He spoke of redaction. The mind is a narrative, Elena, Dr. Thorne said. His voice was like deep water, smooth and enveloping, and sometimes, to save the story, we must erase a chapter. I gripped the arms of the leather recliner. I just want to sleep without checking the locks. I want to look at Mark and not see a potential intruder. And you shall. The protocol is precise. We are going to dissociate the emotional spike from the visual memory. You will remember that it happened, perhaps, but it will feel like reading a biography of a stranger. The fear will be erased. He leaned forward, his eyes catching the dim light of the room. Close your eyes. Count back from 10. With every number, the ink dries. The page turns white. I closed my eyes. 10. The smell of the intruder's sweat. The gleam of the knife. 9. The sound of the window shattering. 8. The darkness swallowed me. It was the 22nd of October when I realized the treatment was working, or at least I thought it was. I woke up with a clarity I hadn't felt in 2 years. The morning sun hit the duvet in a way that didn't feel threatening. I walked into the kitchen, and Mark was there, brewing coffee. He looked up, his face guarded, scanning me for the usual morning panic attack. "Coffee?" he asked tentatively. "Please," I said, leaning against the counter. "Black." He relaxed, shoulders dropping an inch. "You slept through the night. I didn't hear you get up once." "I feel light," I admitted, hollowed out, but in a good way, like a room that's been decluttered. It wasn't until 3 days later, on the 25th of October, that the first glitch appeared. I was scrolling through my phone gallery, looking for a recipe I had screenshotted weeks ago. My thumb hovered, then froze. There was a new photo. It was time-stamped October 24th, 9:45 post-meridium. I tapped it open. The image was grainy, low light, but unmistakable. It was a selfie, taken at a sharp, high angle. I was wearing my dark blue trench coat, the one I kept in the back of the cedar closet, and red lipstick I hadn't worn since before the incident. Behind me, blurred by the motion of the shot, were the neon lights of the Nightingale, a jazz bar downtown. I was smiling, not a polite smile, a baring of teeth, a predator's grin. I felt a cold prickle at the base of my neck. "Mark?" I called out. He walked in from the living room, holding a tablet. "Yeah? Last night," I said, my voice steady, trying not to let the old paranoia bleed in. "What did we do last night?" Mark frowned, confused. "We watched that documentary on reefs. You fell asleep on the couch around 9. I carried you up to bed." I turned the phone screen toward him. "Then explain this." Mark squinted at the image. He took the phone from my hand, bringing it closer to his face. A strange expression crossed his features, not fear, but a profound, weary confusion. "Elena, this looks like an old photo." "Check the date," I insisted. "It says yesterday, the 24th of October. He swiped up to see the metadata. He paused. "It does say that. But, Elena, you were here. I was with you the whole time. I literally carried you up the stairs." He looked at me, his eyes pleading. "Is this a joke? Did you Photoshop this?" "I was asleep," I whispered. "I don't remember leaving." "You didn't leave," Mark said firmly, handing the phone back. "The door alarm never chimed. The motion sensors didn't trip. It's a glitch. The cloud probably synced an old photo and messed up the timestamp." "I didn't own that coat 3 years ago," I said. Mark stopped. The silence in the kitchen grew heavy, suffocating. "You haven't worn that coat since the break-in," he said slowly. "It's in the attic, Elena, in a sealed box." I went to the attic. The box was sealed with duct tape. I cut it open. The coat was there, folded neatly. It smelled of cedar and mothballs. But when I reached into the pocket, my fingers brushed against something stiff. A cocktail napkin, black with gold lettering, "The Nightingale." I stared at it, my breath hitching in my throat. I had been there, wearing this coat, smiling like a wolf, while my husband swore I was asleep in his arms. I called Dr. Thorne's office immediately. "Displacement," Thorne said over the phone, his voice tin. "It is a rare side effect of the hypnotic erasure. The mind attempts to fill the void of the removed trauma with fabricated scenarios. You are experiencing a waking dream, Elena. A hallucination projected onto your digital reality." "I have a napkin," I hissed. "A physical napkin from the bar." "A totem," he countered smoothly. "You likely had it for years. Your mind is contextualizing it to fit the delusion. You are the survivor, Elena, but the survivor is tired. The mind plays tricks to keep you alert. Trust your husband. Trust the physical reality of your home." I wanted to believe him. God, I wanted to believe him, but the photos didn't stop. On the 30th of October, I found 3 more. The first was taken at a park I didn't recognize. The trees were stripped bare, skeletal fingers clawing at a gray sky. I was sitting on a swing, my head thrown back in laughter. The second was a blur of motion, the interior of a car, the speedometer reading 90 miles per hour. My hand was on the wheel. I could see the wedding ring on my finger. The third was the worst. It was taken inside a house. Not my house. The walls were peeling wallpaper, a sickly floral pattern. I was standing in front of a mirror, but I wasn't looking at the camera. I was looking at something behind me in the reflection. I showed them to my sister, Claire, when she came over for lunch on the 1st of November. "I don't understand," Claire said, pushing her salad around the bowl. "You're saying you went out?" "I'm saying I don't remember going out," I said, my hands trembling as I held the phone. "Look at the dates. This one, the park was taken 2 days ago, in the afternoon." Claire went pale. "Elena, 2 days ago I was here. We were scrapbooking in the den. You never left the room. Maybe I went to the bathroom. Maybe I slipped out. For 2 hours? To go to a park that looks like it's 20 miles away?" Claire reached across the table and took my hand. Her grip was tight, bordering on painful. "Elena, Dr. Thorne warned us about this. He said you might dissociate, that you might invent stories to explain the gaps where the bad memories used to be. I am not inventing the photos." I snapped, pulling my hand away. "Then where did they come from?" Claire asked gently. "Because I was sitting across from you when that timestamp says you were on a swing set." I looked at the photo again. The woman in the picture looked so alive, vital, violent almost. She was everything I wasn't. I was a husk, shuffling through a safe life. She was out there, driving fast, laughing at the sky. I think I started, my voice trembling. "I think the hypnosis didn't erase the memory. I think it split me in two." Claire's eyes widened. "Elena, stop. What if one part of me stays here, the good wife, the victim, and the other part wakes up when I sleep? The part that isn't afraid?" "You're sounding paranoid again," Claire whispered, "like before." "I need to know," I said. That night, the 2nd of November, I enacted my plan. Mark was asleep beside me, his breathing heavy and rhythmic. I slipped out of bed. I didn't go to the garage. I didn't leave the house. I went to the guest bedroom, the one we use for storage. I set up my old laptop on the dresser, angling the webcam toward the hallway. I set it to record. Then I went back to bed. I laid there, staring at the ceiling, fighting the heaviness of my eyelids. Dr. Thorne's voice echoed in my head. count back from 10. I must have drifted off. I woke with a gasp. Sunlight was streaming through the blinds. It was the 3rd of November. I scrambled out of bed, ignoring Mark's stirring, and ran to the guest room. The laptop was still there, the green light of the webcam still glowing. I stopped the recording and sat on the floor, my back against the bed frame. I scrubbed through the footage. 100 hours post-meridium, empty hallway. 200 hours post-meridium. Mark walks past, heading to the bathroom. He returns 2 minutes later. 300 hours post-meridium. Nothing. I fast-forwarded. Nothing. Just a silent, empty house. No sleepwalking version of me in a trench coat. No doppelganger. I let out a breath I didn't know I was holding. Thorne was right. I was crazy. It was all in my head. I was hallucinating the photos. Or I checked my phone. There was a new notification. New item added to gallery. My heart stopped. I opened it. The photo was of me. I felt a scream building in my chest. A hot, expanding pressure. If no one entered the room, and Mark was asleep beside me, who took the picture? I zoomed in on the photo on my phone. The quality was crisp. I could see the individual lashes on my sleeping face. I could see Mark's shoulder. And then I saw it in the corner of the photo, reflected in the glass of the bedside water carafe. It wasn't a person. It was a hand. A gray, emaciated hand holding the phone. But the wrist faded into nothing. It didn't connect to an arm. It didn't connect to a body. It was just a hand floating in the air, and on the ring finger of that floating gray hand was a ring. My ring. The one the intruder had stolen 2 years ago. The one we never recovered. I dropped the phone. It clattered on the hardwood floor. "Mark!" I screamed. "Mark!" He didn't answer. The house was silent. Too silent. I ran back to the master bedroom. "Mark, wake up. We have to." I froze in the doorway. The bed was made. Perfectly made. The sheets were tight. The pillows fluffed. There was no sign that Mark had slept there. No indentation. No warmth. I spun around. "Claire?" I yelled, running down the stairs. "Claire!" The kitchen was pristine. No coffee pot. No cups. I grabbed the landline phone from the wall to call the police. There was no dial tone, just that sound. Slicing, slicing, slicing. The sound of Dr. Thorne's metronome. I backed away, bumping into the refrigerator. On the door, held up by a magnet, was a photo. It wasn't a photo of a holiday or a birthday. It was a photo of a grave, fresh earth. A simple marker. Mark Danielson, May 12th, 1985. October 10th, 2 years ago. October 10th, the date of the break-in. My knees gave out. I slid down the fridge door, my vision blurring. "No," I whispered. "No, he was just here. He made coffee. He held me." I looked around the kitchen. It was dusty. Layers of gray dust coated the counters. The fruit in the bowl was rotted, collapsed into black sludge. This house hadn't been lived in for months. My phone buzzed on the floor where I had dropped it upstairs. I could hear the vibration vibrating against the wood. Then Dr. Thorne's voice came. Not from the phone, but from everywhere. From the vents, from the walls. The mind is a narrative, Elena. I scrambled up, running for the front door. It was locked. I clawed at the deadbolt, but it wouldn't turn. "We tried to erase the chapter," the voice continued, calm and clinical. "But the chapter was the whole book." I turned around, my back against the door. Standing in the hallway was the woman from the photos, the woman in the trench coat, the woman with the red lipstick. She wasn't a doppelganger. She wasn't a ghost. She was holding a knife. "Who are you?" I sobbed. She tilted her head. She looked exactly like me, but her eyes were dead, flat, like shark eyes. I'm the one who survived, she said. Her voice was my voice, but stripped of all the trembling fear. You're just the regret. She held up her phone. She snapped a picture of me cowering against the door. Smile, she whispered. Click. My vision fractured. I was looking at the phone screen. I was looking at myself cowering against the door. I was the woman in the trench coat. I looked down at my hands. They were covered in dried blood. I was wearing the coat. I felt the weight of the knife in my pocket. There was no Mark. There was no Claire. There hadn't been for 2 years. I had killed the intruder, and then, when Mark screamed, when he looked at me with that horror, I didn't stop. Dr. Thorne wasn't a therapist. He was a program, a failsafe I had installed in my own fractured psyche to keep the truth at bay, to keep her, the killer, the survivor, locked away in the dark. But the hypnosis hadn't erased the killer. It had erased the mask. I looked at the empty, dusty house. I looked at the photo of the cowering, crying woman on my phone screen, the last vestige of my conscience, finally captured, finally deleted, project erased complete, I said aloud. My voice was steady. I unlocked the front door. Outside, the sun was shining on the 4th of November. It was a beautiful day. I deleted the photo, and I walked out into the world. Muse summary.